think about the outcome that you want. You're not just working out for the sake of working out. You're doing it for a reason. Think about why, like what value, and focus on that. You may not want to do the thing, but you want the result of having done it.
Esther Avant,
a health professional
with 2 decades of experience
in the industry.
Giving yourself the opportunity to think about how many times you've taken that approach before and where it's gotten you. And then you sort of realize, well, what do I have to lose by maybe trying it differently, taking a more moderate approach? And if I miss a day, I'll just pick up again tomorrow. You really have nothing to lose because the you already know isn't getting you results that last.
Welcome to It's Your Choice podcast. Today on the show, we have Esther Avant. Thank you, Esther, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Esther, you've been in the health industry for about 20 years now, and you've seen a lot of different things, I'm sure. How do we kind of help people stop thinking of it's the all or nothing in exercise? I know that there's people that think, I have to exercise for an hour every day or 3 days a week. And if I don't, what's the point of doing anything at all? And they really feel like it's all or nothing.
Yeah, you nailed it. That is one of the biggest barriers that I see in people making consistent, healthy lifestyle changes. And I think, number one, talking about it, the more you hear something, the more you start to believe it. So the more times somebody reminds you, hey, just getting out for a 5-minute walk or, a little bit of stretching, it all adds up. The more you hear that, the more you maybe start to take it on board. But I think the biggest thing is giving yourself the opportunity to think about how many times you've taken that all or nothing approach before and where it's gotten you. And then you sort of realize, well, what do I have to lose by maybe trying it differently, taking a more moderate approach? And if I miss a day, instead of letting it spiral into a month, you just say, all right, well, I'll just pick up again tomorrow. You really have nothing to lose because the all or nothing you already know isn't getting you results that last.
Right. And it's interesting. A friend of mine said that what she has started to do, which is just like little things, is she's got a kettlebell. And while she's waiting for the water to boil when she's making her coffee in the morning, she uses the kettlebell and does some squats or some one arm kind of raises and then switches arms and just little things. Because she says, I'm waiting for it. I'm not really doing anything. And so why not do something while I'm waiting? And then if you think about that, even if she only does, let's say 20 squats every morning times a month adds up to a lot.
Yeah. And not only do those little efforts add up, but as you start to do them consistently and you get a little momentum under your belt, you just start looking for other opportunities. And maybe it's not more exercise, but it's, hey, you know what? While I'm chopping these veggies for dinner, why don't I chop a few extra for tomorrow's dinner and save myself some time? Or while I'm putting away these leftovers, why don't I portion one out for my lunch tomorrow? You just start to see those opportunities because you've already been seizing them in one way. And that stuff does add up. And then once you start to see, my legs are feeling stronger or this weight doesn't feel as heavy as it used to, then you feel more capable of doing a little bit more.
Right. I was talking with somebody here on my podcast just yesterday, and we were talking about times of how long a podcast is. And I said, generally we go about 45 minutes. And he's like, it works. He's like, but sometimes I feel like then I have a bit of wasted time if I have a 15-minute delay between things. And I said to him that, but to me, that 15 minutes, that's for me to get up, get away from my computer, get away from this area, even because I record from home. I just do a walk through the house, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, or just wander for that 10 or 15 minute in between time. It's that physical break of sitting, but also a mental break in between podcasts and talking to people.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking about this with someone also. At the beginning of the year, I started using a social media blocker on my phone. And talk about like a way to squander those 15-minute opportunities is you think, oh, it's not really long enough to get anything done. I don't want to get involved in like a big thing. So you just scroll that time away. And when you remove that option for yourself, you have no choice but to get more creative. Either you get more productive and you're like, oh, you know what? I could respond to a couple emails, or I could get the dishes done, or I could change the laundry over. Or you say, well, I've got this 15 minutes. I don't want to get involved in a big project and that's all I have. So how about, a little brain break or a little bit of movement or a little bit of nourishment or a glass of water? And those times were there all along. You just weren't capitalizing on them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some of the most common mistakes that busy people make when trying to improve their exercise and nutrition habits?
So the one we talked about, the all or nothing approach, is a big piece of it. And paired with that is just feelings of general overwhelm and the fact that we're taking in so much information all the time, and a lot of it is health related, that we end up in a place of just feeling like either I'm getting all this conflicting messaging and I'm not sure what the right thing is, and I don't want to do the wrong thing, so I should probably wait until I can gather more information and kind of figure it out. Or you have this whole laundry list of things that you feel like you should be doing, and you've convinced yourself, because of this all or nothing mentality, that if you can't do all of them, there's no point in doing any of them. So the all or nothing and the overwhelm kind of combine into this either holding pattern or this like starts and stops that also doesn't yield any results. So I think, just like with the all or nothing, reminding yourself that I've been down this road before. It didn't work. Let me try it differently. So if I feel like I need to be doing a lot of different things, but I don't have the bandwidth to do them all right now, what if I just picked one thing? And what if there's kind of a couple of different ways to approach that. I can either go for kind of the low hanging fruit. What feels like the easiest change I can make? That's a small step in the right direction. Just kind of gets me going. Maybe it's drinking water. Maybe it's, those 5-minute walks. Or you can kind of go after the big kahuna and say, I know that I'm somebody who does need to see some sign of change early on, or I'm not going to continue. So I'm going to go after the thing that feels like the biggest deal, because when I do, a lot of the other stuff will either fall into place or just not be as relevant anymore. So kind of cutting through the noise, identifying for yourself, I call them the big rock habits. What are the handful of behaviors that are going to give me the most bang for my buck? And if I just focus on those and let go of everything else, I can figure out how to make them feel easy so that when I'm stressed or when I'm spread thin, I am not at risk of dropping them, because I've given myself the opportunity to be consistent with them and make them routine.
And are there certain or a number of big rock habits that are most common for most people?
Great question. Yes. So I have 8 that I've identified. Lifestyle wise, it's your sleep and your stress management. 2 things that everybody kind of like, yeah, as you, but doesn't actually do anything about. It's almost like a badge of honor. Oh, I'm so stressed. I'm so, I'm so busy. I'm burning the candle at both ends. But the reality of it is, not making those things a priority is making everything else harder. If you're experiencing cravings, that's tied into being under rested, and those cravings are going to be more intense, and you're going to feel less satiated when you're not sleeping well. When you have chronically elevated cortisol levels, that can hinder fat loss. So these are kind of the underlying things that they're not glamorous. We've heard 1,000 times, have a dark room and put on white noise, but we don't necessarily do those things. So those are 2 that would benefit basically everyone. Exercise-wise, daily movement, like we've been talking about, steps are a great proxy goal, but the point is just an overall active lifestyle. So seeking out opportunities to get a little bit more movement in. Instead of struggling with the groceries in one load, you make 2 trips because you're getting a little bit extra movement. You park a little bit further away in the parking lot, those kind of cliche things, but just generally being active. The next exercise big rock is strength training. And this is where we start to get into things that a lot of people aren't necessarily doing. But 3 full body sessions per week is a great goal to be shooting for. And the final exercise big rock is rest and recovery. That's not to say that there's anything wrong with or that you shouldn't be doing cardio or yoga or those sorts of things. But most people, women especially, have been overdoing cardio to the detriment of their strength and their recovery. So that's one that if you enjoy it, you'll continue to do it to some extent. But if you sort of reprioritize how you're moving, you're going to get more bang for your buck. And that benefits everyone, men, women, young, old, but especially women as we age, because we do naturally start to lose muscle mass and bone density as we get older. And then nutritionally, regardless of what your goal is, having a basic understanding of calorie balance and how energy intake and output works. You don't necessarily need to count calories, although it can be a useful tool.
Pardon the interruption. If you're liking the show so far, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really means a lot to me. It helps grow the show and the channel and to the show.
If you want to lose weight, you got to be in a deficit. If you want to put on weight, you have to be in a surplus. If you want to see body recomposition, you want to be at about maintenance. But being able to look at foods and have some reasonable estimate of how much energy your body can derive from that is really important. And then the last two nutrition big rocks are your protein and fiber intake. Both help with satiety, which is really important, right? Nobody wants to be hungry all the time. Protein specifically helps with building and retaining muscle, which again is extra important. And especially when you're losing fat, you want to make sure that you're lifting and eating that protein to spare the muscle that you have. And then fiber, kind of similar to a step goal, is kind of a proxy marker for if you're getting in enough fiber, you are probably eating a pretty nutrient-dense diet that's also rich in your vitamins and minerals and other things that are just good for our bodies.
And I think too with diet, where I just think there's not a lot of awareness of what people are actually consuming. And some people may read labels, they may not. We also have to know that some of those labels are misleading. I know that I've had some in the past where there's granola bars, and you'll get like two granola bars in a package, but when you read the label, it says in the tiny little bracket per bar. And I don't know about you or anybody listening, but if I'm opening up a granola bar package that has 2 bars in it, I'm not eating just one. I'm eating both of them. And so I need to be aware that that's what I'm eating. And the big part is how much sugar is in these things, because there's always more sugar than generally what we anticipate. And again, that's an awareness. I have these digestive biscuits that have chocolate on one side of them. I love them. The whole package of them, I think, is around 1,500 calories and a lot of sugar for the whole pack. And it's funny, every time I go to the grocery store, well, not every time, but every time I'm thinking about buying them, I look and I read the label and I consider at that moment, do I want them or not? And usually when I look at how much sugar and calories and stuff, about 90% of the time I put them back, because I'm like, I like them, but they're just not worth that.
Yes.
But about 10% of the time, I look at them and I say, yep, I want them. I'm going to eat them, and I don't care because I'm okay with it. And it is that knowledge and awareness, because most of the time I don't. Sometimes I do, and I don't feel bad when I do.
Yes, 100%. Awareness is the first step, but it doesn't require you to change anything. To steal your title, it's your choice.
Right.
But at least you have all of the information to make an informed decision. And most people, I would say, would benefit from that, an 85-15 or a 90-10 type kind of breakdown, where most of the time your choices are aligned with overall health and your goals. But you also recognize that A, perfection is not required, and B, you'll be more successful if you allow yourself those indulgences, those things that you just really enjoy, even though they're not, nutrient packed. That way you're not feeling like you're counting down to when you're like allowed to have that thing again.
Right. And I also do intermittent fasting. What are your thoughts on intermittent fasting? Everybody's a little bit different. And I truly believe, though, that, as humans, we're generally the same, as in like heart, lungs, muscle building, things like that. But at a cellular level, we are quite different. So different ways of intermittent fasting, different types of, I don't like to use the word diet, but different type of eating lifestyle works differently for people. And we need to find what works for us. But there's always so many fad diets and fad things that happen that work for thousands of people, maybe even millions of people, but and doesn't work for millions of other people.
Yeah. I love that you said, I can't remember if it was exactly, I practice intermittent fasting or I do intermittent fasting, but you didn't identify as the eating style. You didn't say, I'm an intermittent faster. And I think that's really important, is you're just recognizing this is a thing that I do, but it doesn't define me. It's just something that I've found is helpful. And actually, I do eat similarly. I don't consider it intermittent fasting. Because I don't feel like I need the label, but I have found that first and foremost, most of us who have like kind of a normal daytime, nighttime schedule, most of us don't really need to be eating after dinner. So that's kind of an easy habit to get yourself out of, is after dinner, I know I'm not physically hungry. I've got a couple hours till I go to bed. If I'm eating, it's emotional or it's habitual. It's not physical hunger. So I think most people would benefit from, not eating past like 7 or 8 o'clock, not because anything different happens when you eat. It's not that, that's the calories that are going to stick or anything. It's just that, you don't really need it. You're about to be asleep. So I already don't eat after dinner. And I found that I like to just kind of get my day started before I eat. I like to work out, get my son dropped off at school, get a little work done. So I eat around my first meal around 10 a.m. So if you look at the hours, I'm doing essentially like a 16-8 type split. But I did go through a stretch when I was kind of obsessive of like, it's what time? It's 11:59. I can't eat yet. Or, I have 1 more minute. Let me stuff my face. And since I've just really chilled out about this is a tool that serves me, not the other way around. So I get to decide when I make exceptions to this. If I'm going to meet a friend for breakfast and they want to meet at 9 instead of 10, okay, fine. I can eat breakfast early. If we do a late dinner or if we're celebrating something and we go out for dessert afterwards, okay, fine. I'm the one calling the shots here. And I think that's what it boils down to, is whether it's fasting or it's being plant-based or it's low carb or keto or like whatever the thing is, you're the one that gets to decide when you follow the rules and which ones serve you. And you don't need to fit neatly into a box of, oh, this isn't supposed to be allowed, so I can't do it. It's like, well, why? Does that make any sense for me? So for intermittent fasting has really kind of had a moment in weight loss. But especially as far as that goes, it's just a matter of caloric restriction. It's just that if you drastically reduce the number of hours available to eat, you're probably going to eat less. And some people do experience that, like, well, I'm just going to pack it in fewer hours and I can still overeat. So it's not magic, but it can be easier because it just makes it very cut and dry. Is I don't need to like wrestle with myself. Should I have something? Should I not? And she's like, oh, well, it's not, eating time. So overall, I think you have a really healthy approach to it. And I would encourage other people who are curious to be willing to experiment on themselves. There's nothing wrong with say, I'm going to take 30 days and I'm going to try this and I'm going to see how I feel. And also know that there's nothing wrong with you if you finish the 30 days or if you don't even make it that long and you're just like, you know what, not my jam. That's fine, because you're learning what works for you. And over time, you get to pull this and that from here and there and say, this is, my eating style that works for me. And also because I'm the one deciding it, I can change it at any time as I need to.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm very similar to you. I generally don't eat after 8 o'clock. However, I do spend a fair amount of time in Spain and they like to eat at like 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yes.
So the odd time when I do go out with friends there, I have something very small. But usually 8 o'clock. And I'm the same way. Sometimes like, oh, maybe I'll have something. And I'll look at the time. I'll be like, it's 9 o'clock. Am I really hungry, or have a glass of water or something? But on those few times, if I really do feel like I'm hungry or to go out with friends, same thing. I will eat a little bit later. And then in the mornings though, I'm usually closer to about a noon eater. But again, if I'm hungry, I will eat. I don't restrict it. I did a little bit more in the beginning, and then I think I just kind of got used to it. And so now if I am hungry, I'll eat, but a lot of times I don't. So I don't I don't go around and say, well, I'm an intermittent faster and I only eat between these hours because if I really am hungry, I will eat. And I know too, it also depends on my full routine because my schedule changes, my routine changes. So those having that flexibility within those hours are good too. And one thing that I do really try to stick with that I love is a drink I have in the morning. Pardon the interruption. If you're enjoying this episode and you're someone who values performance, clarity, and personal growth, then you're going to love my Mind Matters weekly newsletter. Every week, I send out a quick, powerful piece designed to help high achievers like you master your mindset, upgrade your habits, and lead with more clarity and fulfillment. It's not fluff, it's science backed, actionable, and easy to digest. It as your weekly reset button to realign with the leader you're becoming. So if you want to go deeper than what we've covered here on the show, then head over to www.sallypederson.com. That's me, and subscribe. Your next breakthrough just might be one email away. Now back to the show. And I kind of use it just a little bit before I eat. So I'm usually awake for a while. And then around 10 or 11ish before I eat, I have, and it's fresh lemon with some chia seeds, and I leave that sit. Like I set that up first thing in the morning. I leave it sit for a couple of hours, and then I add apple cider vinegar, salt, either pink Himalayan salt or Celtic salt, fresh ginger, fresh turmeric, black pepper, raw honey, and then hot water all together. And I know it sounds a little bit crazy. I've had friends that look at me, they're like, what? But it's really good. And of course, like I like all those things. And I just dump some in. I don't have a specific recipe for it, but there's so many good things within that. And I can adjust it if I'm feeling like the other day I was pouring the apple cider vinegar in and it accidentally spilt a little bit too much in there. So it was a little bit strong, but I just put in a little extra honey to help kind of balance it out. But it is really a great drink that I like to have in the mornings.
There's really something to be said for anchoring your morning with some sort of healthy routine, whether it's a meal or a drink or just a glass of water before your coffee, but just something that kind of starts the day off on the right foot and reminds you that you're a healthy person who makes healthy choices right from the jump, and it positively impacts the rest of the day. I have a kind of a comfort breakfast that I've done, I don't know, probably 330 days a year for the last 5 or 6 years, not because it's like the only safe breakfast, but because I enjoy it. Like your drink, it's very nutrient dense. I'm getting eggs, I'm getting sweet potato, lots of veggies, avocado. It just works for me. So I think a lot of times we try to make ourselves change things up for no good reason. There's so much to be said for finding what works and doing it for as long as it continues to work, and then kind of flexing and being like, all right, either this isn't as appealing as it was, or I started to get curious about other things, and then you can dabble. But if you find something that's working for you, yeah, just do it on repeat.
Absolutely. And I think too, instead of using the words restriction or diet or those kind of almost negative context words, that it's better. So even when I started my fasting, instead of saying, because I'll do a 1 day probably about every 2 weeks where I do a 24-hour fast. And not always, but when I first started to do it, I would tell myself, I can't eat today. I can't eat today. I can't. And I'm just thinking of food all day long and I can't eat. But when I changed it to, no, I'm fasting today, it just seemed a lot easier.
I couldn't agree more. And part of what I love about the title of this podcast is that you're really shining the spotlight on the fact that everything is a choice. And we do tend to not realize how much the language matters. But when you're telling yourself you should do something or you can't do something, that causes a reaction in your brain. And we naturally rebel against the things that we feel like we can't do. So whether it's, the way you think about your workouts or the way you think about healthy eating, reminding yourself that you're actually choosing to do these things. If you don't want to do the fast, You don't have to. You're choosing to.
Nobody else cares if I do it or not, right? Like
Right,
no
right.
one cares if I cheat on my own fast or if I'm sneaking something. No one knows. No one else cares. It's only me and I know.
Right, right. And I think it's so helpful to think about how whatever the thing. So exercise is a common one. Is so many people are just like, I just don't like exercise and I dread it and I'm not good at it. And it's like, well, of course you don't want to do it when that's how you're framing it. But if you
Right.
and plenty of people don't enjoy the act of exercise, and maybe you can find something that you do enjoy, or maybe you're just like, this is the thing that is good for my health and I'm going to do it anyway. But thinking about, I just lost my train of thought a little bit. Okay.
How we talk to ourselves and the
How we
way we
talk to
word
ourselves.
things.
Yes.
Um,
Is to thank you, to think about the outcome that you want. Is you're not just working out for the sake of working out. You're doing it for a reason, whether it's for your heart health or to lose some weight or to be able to. I love that Christmas commercial of the grandpa that's practicing with a
Oh,
kettlebell so he can lift his
yes.
granddaughter up and put the star on the tree. Think about why, like what value the exercise or whatever the thing has, and focus on that. You may not want to do the thing, but you want the result of having done it. And then kind of by extension, you do want to do it. So then you just follow through on what you said you do and you feel good about it.
And I think that really is a great way to look at it because and to realize too that we can have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with our workouts. So I started running a long time ago because I was doing a fundraising event for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and doing fundraising, and I thought, okay, well I'll do that, and I'm going to run a marathon. Now I've exercised kind of on and off my whole life, and I would do 20, 30 minutes on the treadmill a bit, but nothing substantial. And first day of training was to run 10 kilometers. And it was a rainy day. And I just thought, I'm driving to go meet the people. I'm like, nobody's going to be running. This weather sucks. It's cold. Like I'm saying all this stuff. And I get there, and the number of people that were out jogging in the rain, I couldn't believe it. And the first, even now to this day, so that was about 15 years ago. To this day, the first probably kilometer when I'm jogging or the first like 15 kind of minutes when I start, I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? Like, this isn't fun. This isn't. And then I get into a bit of a routine, a momentum, a stride, and then it's better. And then I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. It's tiring. And then I feel great when I'm finished. So I know now that I have that at first, and then okay, it's not so bad. And I love the feeling when I'm done. And I enjoy that feeling so much that it brings me back to getting through that first feeling every time I go jogging.
I cannot relate to that more. It's so familiar. I just ran my first and probably only marathon, and I don't enjoy the act of running. And like you, the first several minutes, I'm like, I actively hate this. And then I kind of settle into like, I am tolerating this. I'm still not, having a great time, but like it's less awful than it was a few minutes ago. And you would think like, well, if that's how you feel about it, like, why would you want to run a marathon? It was like, I wanted to be able to say that I had done it. And I was like, well, this is what needs to be done in order to get that result. So I will tolerate the displeasure and the discomfort of doing this thing because I want to be able to say that I have done it. And yours is a bit more noble that has a charitable component. But that's exactly it.
Yeah, and it is realizing too that a lot of times when we're trying something new for people who don't exercise or haven't found what they've enjoyed yet, that we may need to try a bunch of things. And for me, because I've been doing it for so long, I also go through phases. Like I love jogging in the summertime. I don't jog in the wintertime. I don't like being cold. I don't like being out. Like it's not my thing, but I prefer to do a lot more weight training or mixing in like Pilates classes and things like that, or group exercise classes with weights because I used to work out with weights just a lot in the gym, like by myself, and that was okay. And now I'm just find it boring. I'm not that into it. If it doesn't work with my schedule to join in a class, then I'll do it. But that class just motivates me a little bit more, pushes me a little bit more. And so it's also getting to know ourselves and really trying so many different types of activities to find what you're going to like and what a person will enjoy, because there's just so much option out there for different things.
Yeah, it's so true. We do tend to have these really narrow definitions of like what exercise is, and that we have to just suffer through a very specific thing in order to, to be healthy. And it's just not the case. Maybe you're just not a gym person, but you love getting out in nature and hiking or biking or boating. And I love that you touch on kind of the cyclical nature of it. Is I think sometimes we have a hard time trying things and starting things because we're sort of telling ourselves in the back of our mind that it's a lifelong commitment. That, oh well, if I start going to the gym, then like that's it. Then I have to go forever. And like you just don't. You can do something that works for you right now. And yeah, especially living in a really cold climate, of course, it makes sense that you want to take advantage of being able to get outside when it's nice out, and that you don't want to suffer through being outdoors when it's not. So you get to decide what that looks like. And when you find multiple things that you like, you start to then look forward to, I can't wait till summer so I can get out and run some. Oh, I'm looking forward to winter so that I can get back to, my group exercise class and see those friends again. That's such a healthy outlook, as opposed to every single week must look exactly the same year after year, or I've fallen off and I'm not motivated. It's like, well, maybe just I'm changing, my interests are changing, the seasons are changing. And as long as I'm finding ways to, consistently move my body, like let that be a win.
Right, right. And I also think though, if we're doing the same thing all the time, our body gets used to it. Right. And it just becomes that plateau, I think, stays longer, whether it's somebody who's, if you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, put on muscle, like whatever it may be. If you're just constantly doing the same thing over and over and over again, at first it's different. So you're going to see good results. But then after, your body gets used to it. And even if you're jogging or doing the same kind of different workout routines, you're using the same muscles. So it's good to switch things up, to use just different muscles within the body that maybe we don't regularly use when we're doing, like, if you're playing basketball, if you're playing soccer, if you do the same kind of leg routine, body workout routine, like we always have those other little smaller muscles and different things um, that aren't always used unless we're doing different activities.
Yeah, it's a great point. I used to work at a city rec center, and we had an older clientele, and there were some members there who you could tell had been coming in doing the exact same routine for literally decades. And, obviously there's a lot of good just in being there and socializing and doing something. So, but yeah, if you're already putting in the time, you might as well do it in a way that's going to give you the most bang for your buck. So if that's, as simple as just tweaking your exercises a little bit, or lifting a little bit heavier, or instead of always doing a steady state jog, you work in some sprint intervals, or if you're always cycling on a flat road, you add in some hill work, things like that. You don't need to, turn things upside down of, oh, I love Zumba, but now I can never go back. But more so like, yeah, how do I maximize the time that I'm getting? Because my body is an efficient machine. And the more I do something, the more it is able to be like, oh, we know exactly how to do this, and we're going to use as little energy as possible to do it. And that's when you do start to be like, oh, this feels like it used to work, and now it's not.
Right. And so people are looking for different goals. So if I want to gain muscle, is there a certain number of days a week that I should be working out for that specific goal? And for somebody who really wants to lose weight, we know it's a combination of exercise and diet. But again, is there a number of days that we should be focusing on? And I know, like, every day we want to have some movement, but actual, when we think about the exercise, the workout, how many days a week for different things should be our goal?
Yeah, great question. There's a ton of overlap, because really kind of the difference between working out to lose fat and working out to build muscle is how you're eating. So
Right.
you could do the exact same workout, but whether or not you see the scale go up or down is just based on how much you're eating overall. But generally speaking, I would say if your goal is fat loss, you could probably get away with 2 or 3 strength workouts, focusing on full body compound movements, assuming that your program relies on progressive overload. So like we were just talking about, you're not going in and doing the exact same sets and reps every day and weights, but you're continuing to push yourself. Can I get an extra rep? Can I add an extra set? Can I go up 5 pounds? That sort of thing. You can get away with 2 to 3. I think for fat loss goals, aiming for at least 7,000 steps pretty much every day, and then filling in those gaps with the other stuff that you enjoy and your lifestyle allows. So a day or two of jogging or cycling or Pilates, yoga, that sort of thing. But that's kind of your foundation. And then I'd say if you have a muscle building goal, it would benefit you to lift a little bit more. So I'd say like 3 to 5 days. And depending on where you fall in that, if you're doing 3 days, you'd want to do full body. Again, if you're doing 4 days, I'd do 2 days upper, 2 days lower. And then if you're doing 5 days, you could get into more of a body part split. So say you do chest and tries, back and bis, that sort of thing. But the main thing I would look at is what can you consistently do? Because as you increase the number of days of lifting and you get into those splits, it becomes not a huge deal, but a bigger deal to be missing workouts. Because if you only have legs programmed once a week and you miss that day, now you're going 2 weeks without working your legs. That's going to have a bigger impact than if you miss 1 of 3 full body days.
Right, right. And I mean, all of us should be doing weight training, in my opinion. We all need to be lifting weights for, as we said earlier, building muscle and bone density. And a big misconception I think there is like, and I hear people say too, especially women, well, I don't want to get too big. I don't want to get too bulky. I mean, you really have to be lifting a lot of weight and quite often and eating really clean, super high protein, like you to get that kind of bulky when you see like bodybuilder, fitness competition. I mean, they are focused on a lifestyle. That's not 3 day a week weight training routine to look like that.
Yeah, it's kind of such a silly concern. It's almost like investing a little bit in the stock market and being like, oh, I hope I don't, wake up rich tomorrow. It's like, don't worry, you won't. It's like the women that you might see and think like, oh, she's bulkier than I would like to look like. She's probably been very, very dedicated to putting on that muscle over the course of years. A lot of her life is revolving around, like you said, eating for that goal, lifting for that goal, or she's on some sort of performance enhancing drug. There's a lot, it is very, very, very rare for just kind of the average woman who walks into the gym and picks up some dumbbells to really ever reach a point where she gets overly muscular.
Right, right. Yeah, it doesn't happen that often. Esther, you have written a book, To Your Health, I believe is the title of it. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's really been the culmination of my last 20 years of health and weight loss coaching for women. Is I just picked up on, after working with thousands of clients, how many commonalities most people had, that the challenges with being successful came down to consistency, commitment, confidence in reaching that goal, and that there was really kind of a simple framework for reaching weight loss goals, really any health goal. And part of it is what we've been talking about is identifying the big rocks. So the book goes over what those are, because everybody wants to know kind of the tactical stuff. What exercises should I be doing for fat loss, and how many calories should I be eating, or what should I be eating? But so much of the actual work is, once you know those things, why is it so hard to be consistent at doing them? Mm-hmm. So that's really the meat and potatoes of the book. Is it's intended to be a roadmap to follow where you do know exactly what to do. And also it gets beneath the surface and it helps you pinpoint, all right, why am I struggling to do this? And how do I make changes that are going to last?
Excellent. And so if people wanted to get a copy of the book, or they want to connect with you, work with you, follow you to get all your tips and things like that, where are the best places for them to find you?
Thank you for asking. The book is available anywhere the books are sold. Amazon is, probably the easiest, and it's called To Your Health. I also have a podcast called To Your Health that is really kind of all things personal development and health. So exercise, nutrition, mindset, lifestyle stuff like we've been talking about. My website is esteravant.com, and it has links to my social media as well.
Perfect. And I will make sure that we have the links to that in the show notes below. And I just want to thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.